Hello and welcome to Useful Idiots Monday morning, where we watch the Sunday morning shows so that you do not have to. I'm Katie Halper.
I'm Aaron Maté. Thanks so much for being here. Great to start the week with you and some of the worst people in the world on corporate TV. Our website, as always, is usefulidiotspodcast.com. Go there, support the show, get bonus content.
That's what you got to do. And look at this comment. So nice. Sugar and spice and all things nice. That's what Katie and Aaron are made of. And if you agree with that, or maybe you don't agree with that, but you just want to support the show and show your gratitude to us for watching these clips and shows on a Sunday night. It's not a great way to spend the Sunday night, but we do it for you. We do it for the people. Then give us a thumbs up. It's a free way to support the show. What's easier than that? One thumbs up. And we got to beat the algorithm. We need to get more thumbs up than the Pod Save Boys.
You know, one time, a long time ago in Montreal, I was at a karaoke bar, and there was like a regular who was performing like a lot of songs, like Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston. And at the end, this person said, I'm gonna do it in French and then I'll translate it. She said, and it's in my now remedial French, so forgive me, French speakers. But she said, or this person said, "Je fais ça pour vous. Ce n'est pas pour un contrat. Ce n'est pas pour un contrat. C'est pour vous."
That's right.
And which means I don't do this for a singing contract. I do this for you, everybody in the karaoke bar. It was a very emotional moment, and I found it very touching. Everybody clapped. It was touching, and that's us.
Not for a contract, but for you.
Ce n'est pas pour un contrat, c'est pour vous. C'est pour vous. Ce n'est pas pour un contrat.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's a very moving story, Aaron. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So should we just start with the very disgusting, irresponsible media malpractice opening of Meet the Press? See if you can detect a focus from them, which perhaps is not appropriate given that there is a Holocaust happening right now.
Let's go to Meet the Depressed.
Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Kristen Welker.
Good Sunday morning. President Trump is waking up at his golf resort in Scotland this weekend, but unable to shake the controversy that is increasingly engulfing his White House back at home. Those growing calls for his administration to release all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein was a financier convicted of sex crimes and facing federal sex trafficking charges when he was found dead in his jail cell in 2019, ruled a suicide. On the campaign trail, Mr. Trump said he would release the Epstein files.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would.
But now,
look, in Trump's defense here, he was not an enthusiastic proponent of releasing the Epstein files. Right. And in that same interview, he goes on to say, but you got to be careful because there's some wrong things in there, I'm sure. You don't want to hurt innocent people. So right. He was already making clear that he was very hesitant to release the Epstein file for obvious reasons. They were right. Hanging out. They were friends. Trump is an admitted sexual predator. Epstein was a sexual predator. And when two sexual predators are hanging out, there's probably going to be some damning stuff. And so right. Trump was very tepid about the Epstein files. But unfortunately, his top influencers didn't get the memo. And his deputy director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, was constantly on his podcast hyping up the Epstein files and basically accusing the government of covering up a pedophile ring. And so the chickens are truly coming home to roost right now.
Indeed, yeah. And I would say that, the significance of the Epstein story is the way that, and I've said this before, but the way that sexual assault and sex trafficking is a bipartisan affair. And the significance is also that it's yet another example of Donald Trump making promises, although not as enthusiastic, but making promises on the campaign trail that he does not deliver on as president. And it's the kind of myth of draining the swamp that we don't see. And this extends also to foreign policy, obviously, and his anti-war shtick, which is not followed through on in policy. But again, the fact that they are focusing on this, not on Gaza, not on the West Bank, not on ICE, not on the ravages of the big, beautiful bill in the show opening, shows you the priority of the news, which is, people are being starved to death by Israel and with U.S. support, but let's focus on Epstein. It's also, there's nothing new here. So anyway, it does feel like
his administration is backtracking, creating a backlash from Democrats, and for the first time from many in his own base. The president facing mounting questions about his relationship with Epstein, trying to shift the focus.
And this is what I find, troubling about all this. Like, the first backlash that Trump has gotten from his base is over not releasing whatever the Jeffrey Epstein files are. Like, what about the fact that his administration just pushed through the so-called big beautiful bill that cuts Medicaid and food stamps? A lot of MAGA people rely on those services. And where's the backlash over that? Like, everyone's sort of yawned and moved on over this like massive cut to public social welfare.
Well said, Aaron.
You're making a very big thing over something that's not a big thing. Don't talk about Trump. What you should be talking about is the fact that we have the greatest 6 months in the history of a presidency.
This week, the Wall Street Journal reported that
that always goes well when someone says, hey, don't talk about this thing, talk about something else. Like,
yeah,
like that always like, oh, okay, okay, sure, yeah, we'll just move on.
So
I mean, I don't think he's buying into the feeding frenzy here.
Right.
And the media loves this because this is, I think this is good maybe for ratings. The whole Epstein thing, people find this very titillating, very exciting. Yeah. The secret conspiracy, it's kind of like, the Russiagate thing was a similar thing. It's like, oh, the conspiracy is around the corner. We're going to find it out. I personally think Epstein thing has been way overblown based on what I've seen. But certainly, I do, based on Trump's behavior, it definitely seems like there's something in there he does not want to have released that would embarrass him.
True. Oh, by the way, sorry, just really quickly, someone put in the comments, I think it's an important question. What was Ghislaine Maxwell convicted of or found guilty of? And it was conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein to sexually abuse minors. Okay.
3. Mr. Trump contributed to a collection of letters to Epstein for his 50th birthday, allegedly writing a bawdy letter to Epstein, which included an outline of a naked woman. The president has forcefully denied he wrote the letter and is now suing the Journal.
You maintain you did not write a letter for Jeffrey Epstein's birthday?
I don't even know what they're talking about. Now, somebody could have written a letter and used my name, but that's happened a lot.
The Journal also...
Has it happened a lot?
Yeah.
Is it a regular thing for Trump where like, drawings of women's bodies just keep popping up and it's wrongly attributed to Trump? Is this a thing that's been happening that I missed?
Every day. Who among us hasn't had that happen to us?
Yeah.
Reported that Attorney General Pam Bondi informed Mr. Trump during a May briefing that his name appeared in Justice Department documents related to Epstein. While the White House confirms that meeting happened, the president denies being told his name appears in the files.
No, I was never briefed. No.
Being named in the files is not evidence of wrongdoing.
See, this is the problem with being like a serial philanderer and a pathological liar, which is just like you're going to say things that even if you're, again, not even as guilty as people think you are through all this, you're just going to draw more suspicion to yourself because you're just reflexively constantly, no, I didn't know, I didn't get that. It's like now he's denying that even he was told that his name is in there when he was friends with Jeffrey Epstein for like 10 years and he wants us to think there's no way he's named in like whatever the government has on Jeffrey Epstein. It really strains credulity.
Oh my God.
And Epstein's one-time girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Someone said a good point that he says, I never write drawings. It's a great line.
Yeah, which is not even true because he has drawn drawings and they've been auctioned off in certain things and they're out there publicly. So that's not true as well.
Yeah. Aaron, if you got him in a cross-examination, I pity the fool.
Yeah.
Coming with them, yeah.
Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year sentence, convicted of assisting his sex trafficking ring, including luring and abusing young women herself, answered questions from DOJ officials for 2 straight days, prompting the question, would the president pardon her? When Mr. Trump was pressed, he didn't rule it out.
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something. It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
All as the drumbeat for the release of the Epstein files continues to grow louder, and as Republican infighting over the potential disclosure has reached a fever pitch.
People want the information. They don't want things covered up, especially when it comes to the most well-known convicted pedophile in modern day history. It's important to them, and they really want the information out.
And joining me now, a bipartisan duo who is team.
All right. Well, thank you, Meet the Depressed, for spending your entire opening summary of the week on Jeffrey Epstein, as if there's nothing else
important news. Yeah,
going on. Not, as Katie said, a Holocaust. This week, more than 100 aid groups released a joint statement saying that Israel is carrying out mass starvation in Gaza, leading to acute levels of malnutrition, especially in children and the elderly. And all this is being done with U.S. support. Trump actually was asked about this on Sunday. And listen to what Trump said about the starvation crisis in Gaza.
Well, you know, we gave $60 million 2 weeks ago, and nobody even acknowledged it, for food. And it's terrible. You know, you really at least want to have somebody say thank you. No other country gave anything. We gave $60 million 2 weeks ago for food for Gaza. And nobody acknowledged it. Nobody talks about it. And it makes you feel a little bad when you do that. And, you know, you have other countries not giving anything. None of the European countries, by the way, gave. I mean, nobody gave but us. And nobody said, gee, thank you very much. And it would be nice to have at least a thank you.
It's so and it's so hard to watch. It's so evil.
Because it's so upsetting that he didn't get a thank you, right? That's why it's so hard to watch.
Yes, that's why. That's why. I mean, good for you, Katie, for being able to make humor out of that, because that's just it's one of the most callous statements I've ever heard. I mean, people are starving to death. There have been at least 100 deaths from starvation so far, including children. And he's complaining that no one's thanking him for, he says, putting up $60 million in food aid, which obviously has not been delivered because Israel's blocking everything under a siege that he's supporting.
Right. Yeah. I mean, also, I don't know so is he breaking in news when he says that the U.S. has given $60 million to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation? Or he's not telling the truth and exaggerating the number, because I think it said that it was $30 million to the foundation. But of course, that begs the question of why he's doing that. And as we all know, that foundation is, I mean, it's one of the most disturbing things that we've seen. It's not just a fake aid center, as in it's not giving aid. It's being used to lure people to their deaths, literally. I mean, it's absolutely sick.
It's one of the most evil creations of the human mind since the Nazi Holocaust. So you had a UN aid system in Gaza that was working to the best that one could under these circumstances. The UN had more than 400 aid sites at which people could pick up aid. Israel, with U.S. help, blocks the UN, prevents them from distributing and bringing in aid, and then replaces it with the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is staffed by spooks and mercenaries. It's led by a former official with the CIA, who helped train death squads in Central America in the 1980s. And they reduced the number of aid sites from 400 to 4. Most of them are in South Gaza. So that means anybody in the north has to make a really long trek, a dangerous one, risking their lives, just to be able to go and maybe get a box of aid. And as you said, at those sites, Israel has been massacring people. More than 1,000 people have been killed lining up for food since the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation began operations in May. That's more civilians than were killed on October 7th. And those civilians that were killed on October 7th, the Israeli civilians, that includes people killed by Israel, because Israel, as we know, enacted the Hannibal Directive. So, more Palestinians have been killed lining up for food from the fake aid group set up by Israel and the U.S. than Israelis were killed, civilians were killed on October 7th.
But this is all about protecting lives. Yeah, it's really disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's hear from House Speaker Mike Johnson. What does he have to say about starving children and starving civilians in Gaza?
About a critical issue on the world stage. The world has been watching what has been unfolding in Gaza. We are going to show some of these pictures. They're very disturbing, Mr. Speaker. Of course, this humanitarian crisis children starving to death. Israel has now paused military operations amid the international outcry over this hunger crisis. Are Israel's actions too little too?
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, Israel's not paused military operations. There's
Right.
massacres ongoing. Today, there were yesterday as well. So Israel claimed that they were pausing to allow some aid to go through, but there's actually no indication that that happened.
Look at that image, by the way, that you paused it on. I mean, this is so disgusting. These people are being punished for the crime of being born in Gaza. That's
Yeah,
it.
for being born in a giant refugee camp, concentration camp, because Israel stole their homes in what is now Israel. Like most of the population of Gaza are refugees or the descendants of refugees from what is now Israel, because Israel stole their homes in 1948, drove them out into Gaza. That's why most people in Gaza exist, is because they're refugees from land that Israel stole from them.
Right.
And
Also,
they're prevented from leaving because Israel's kept them in a cage now for well over 2 decades.
right. Also, notice how she calls it a hunger crisis, which makes it seem like some kind of natural disaster or some kind of like unforeseen problem, or maybe oh things are happening by accident. No, it's an intentional policy of starvation.
Yeah.
But they don't call it that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's hear it from Mike Johnson.
Late, Mr. Speaker.
The images are disturbing and heartbreaking. We all want a peace there in that region. The president.
By the way, he looks really upset. The images are heartbreaking. He sounds like a robot because he's probably a sociopath. And I like when he goes, "We all want a peace." I think he means we all want a peace. P-I-E-C-E, maybe, as opposed to P-E-A-C-E.
I mean, in his defense, he is the most like ventriloquist dummy looking politician I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like he looks like he could be like someone could be behind him being like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Trump is trying to forge that, and we support it 100%. I will tell you that I've spoken to my friend Ambassador Leiter, the Israeli ambassador to the U.S., and to other Israeli officials. This is important to note. Israel, since this war began, has supplied over 94,000 truckloads full of food. It's enough food to feed 2 million people for 2 years, trying to get that into Gaza. But Hamas has stolen the food. A huge amount. In fact, in 2024, the numbers are that Hamas profited over $500 million in stolen food aid that was supposed to go to these poor people who needed it. That's half of their budget. So this is a broken system. The UN needs to work with Israel to make sure that the food is getting to the people that need it most. The IDF, I'm told as recently as this morning, will begin.
It's just such a transparent lie. And these numbers, like what he's saying is, I spoke to my friend, the Israeli ambassador. He gave me talking points. Now, like a good ventriloquist dummy, I'm repeating them to you on corporate TV. Like basically, he should have the Israeli ambassador just behind him, like
exactly. Yeah,
controlling his mechanisms. That's what he's doing. Everything's a lie. Look, just look at it, like just practically. If a UN aid truck goes into Gaza, right, and then sets up and then goes to its distribution site, one of the 400 that Israel had taken down, and gives food to a desperate person, how is Hamas getting that food? Like, you think like after the person like goes down the street, a Hamas guy comes out the corner and says, "Give me your food." I mean, it's just such a complete blood libel.
Right.
And we now even know, we're going to get to this in a second, but there's even more confirmation, not that we needed it from Israelis, that this was a lie. But let's just finish this clip.
Tomorrow in opening new channels of distribution to get it to those people who are desperately in need. That's Israel's intention. That's the U.S.'s intention, and the UN as well.
All right, Mr. Speaker, we are out of time. We should note the New York Times just yesterday did report that the IDF never found proof that Hamas had systematically stolen deliveries of aid provided by the UN and other groups. We do really appreciate your joining us, and I hear you defending the Israeli position on that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You got it. Thank you.
See, I hear you defending the Israeli position on that, but notice how he's actually not going to try to push back on that story in the New York Times. And let's put that up there on the screen. This was the headline in the New York Times. And again, this is a classic case where Israel says something, the media parrots it like the stenographers that they are, and then way after the fact, way after the damage is done, they acknowledge that it's all a lie. This was what the New York Times published over the weekend. Breaking news: Israeli military officials say they have no proof Hamas routinely steals UN aid, undercutting a claim Israel's used to limit food for Gaza. And again, limit food for Gaza is a euphemism for blockading all food from coming in to Gaza and destroying the UN aid system that was delivering. So this is, and the story says that actually the Israeli military, again, could find no proof that Hamas steals aid at any significant scale, and also that the UN aid system was working very well. That's also what the story says. And yeah, okay, so now people can admit this after the fact. And after the New York Times so many times printed the Israeli lie that Hamas was stealing aid. You're muted, Katie.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Also important to note that before October 7th, there were 500 trucks entering. And now
Every day.
Every day, yes.
Yeah.
Every day, yeah. You know what this reminds me of when the New York Times belatedly corrects themselves is there's a genre of films and books called Shoot and Cry, which is when soldiers recount the crimes that they express like regret and remorse for the war crimes that they committed. And it's useful because it is good information to have out there, but it's kind of a BS thing to do. Like it would have been nice for you not to commit the crimes in the first place. That's kind of like what I feel like the equivalent of what the New York Times does, which is they lie, they spread propaganda, and then a couple of weeks later, after it's like penetrated the minds of its readers, they say, "Oh yeah, that wasn't true." And maybe by now we can just all agree that by default you shouldn't believe what Israel's saying. Like that should be the default.
100%. As Norman Finkelstein says, Israel is guilty until proven innocent. That should be the default standard. And every Israeli claim should certainly be reflexively treated as a lie. How many have there been? Beheaded babies, mass rapes, Hamas headquarters under hospitals, Hamas blocking a ceasefire,
Human shields.
Hamas is UNRWA.
Right.
Just on and on and on. Everything is a lie. Everything gets repeated initially by the corporate media, and everything after the fact is debunked after the damage is done, after it serves its purpose.
And my mini shout out maybe to Kirsten Welker for acknowledging your I don't even know if she meant it as a criticism, but just pointing out that all he's doing is defending the Israeli position. That's his job basically.
Well, yeah, she's like, I understand you're a Israeli propagandist. I know that's who you are. And he's like, yeah. He doesn't even try to push back on the New York Times story. Like, if you really didn't believe it, you'd be like, no, the New York Times, blah, blah, blah. No, he's like, right. Yeah, I am just a ventriloquist dummy for Israel. Yes, right. Yes, I am. And these people say at the same time, America first.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what was it? Tammy Bruce from the State Department said something about how America is the greatest nation in the world.
Next to Israel.
Yeah, next to Israel. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It should really be America second.
Yeah. America next to Israel. That should really what they should start saying instead of America first.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's turn to another Israel firster, Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, great guy.
The topic we're talking about today is a change in strategy. I think President Trump has come to believe, and I certainly come to believe, there's no way you're going to negotiate an end to this war with Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization.
When did you ever believe otherwise?
Right.
He's been saying from the start you can't negotiate with Hamas and you have to destroy them. He's been giddily invoking, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Exactly. So it's like, is this some new shift from you, Lindsey Graham, and Israel and Trump? We were all about negotiation, but it's just simply not working. So anyway, let's go to the final solution now.
Yeah, I was like, did I miss something? I must have missed something, but no, there's just literally no change. Yeah.
Organization who is chartered to destroy the state of Israel. They're religious Nazis. They hold Israeli hostages. I think Israel's
Hamas is actually not chartered to destroy the state of Israel. He's living in 1987. Yes, in 1987, Hamas wrote a charter in a refugee camp while under a crippling Israeli occupation. This was at the time of the first Intifada when Israel was cracking down on a largely nonviolent civil uprising against military rule. And Hamas wrote a charter in a refugee camp written by a bunch of refugees whose land was stolen from them, and now they're living in a concentration camp, calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. In 2017, they amended their charter, and they actually accepted a huge Palestinian compromise, which is a small little state for Palestinians in the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem. Hamas accepted that. Has Lindsey Graham or Chuck Schumer or any Israeli government across the spectrum ever accepted that? No. They insist on their self-proclaimed right to steal as much Palestinian land as they want in the occupied West Bank and have settlement blocks there full of Jews from Brooklyn, where I am, that make a Palestinian state impossible. So that's the contrasting positions. So who are in that situation? Who are the religious Nazis? The people who accept a compromise, or the people who say, because there's a book from like 2,000 years ago that says some of us were here, we have the right to steal all this land now and expel all of its inhabitants who've been here for thousands of years and steal their homes.
Right.
Like, who's the Nazi like in that equation?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because you're not allowed to ever compare Israel, the state of Israel, to Nazis. In fact, the IHRA, the working definition of anti-Semitism, explicitly says that you're not allowed to compare contemporary Israel actions to the Nazis. But they're happy to always compare Israel defenders and Israel itself, or love comparing their enemies to Nazis. And as you've just pointed out, Aaron, who are the religious Nazis here? Okay, so Israel is the one that wants to make Gaza Jewish again, basically, right? It's a new MAGA, if you will, MAGA. Also, you have this poll that was so disturbing, that conducted by Penn State and published by Haaretz. 47% of Israelis in this poll responded yes to the question, do you support the claim that the Israeli army, in conquering an enemy city, should act in a manner similar to the way the Israelites did when they conquered Jericho under the leadership of Joshua, i.e., kill all its inhabitants?
Yeah, and like, who's imposing a starvation siege right now on a concentration camp, evoking scenes from Nazi Germany? I mean, how can you look at the emaciated people of Gaza, desperate for food, pinned in a concentration camp, being bombed constantly, and not draw a comparison to the Holocaust after tens and tens of thousands of deaths? I mean, anyway, we're belaboring the point, but it's so obvious. Like, if you're going to make a Nazi comparison, the only appropriate one is to Israel, not to Palestinians.
And also, I just want Les Watts writes, I used to avoid any mention of Nazis when discussing Israel, not anymore. I can't tell you the number of guests and people I've interviewed for the show, the Katie Halper show, perhaps for this show, I don't remember, but definitely on the Katie Halper show, and definitely on this documentary that I'm working on about Holocaust survivors of the Nazi Holocaust speaking out against the genocide. And the latest person who said that to me, actually, in an interview I did for that film, was Daniel Levy, the great former Israeli negotiator who's really obviously come a long way. And he said, that it's like Israel is daring us to not compare their actions to the Nazis. So, yeah.
All right. Well, do we want to hear the rest of Lindsey Graham? In fact, let's hear what Lindsey Graham, what else he has to offer us.
Include that they can't achieve a goal of ending the war with Hamas that would be satisfactory to the safety of Israel. And if they're going to do in Gaza what we did in Tokyo and Berlin, take the place by force, then start over again, presenting a better future for the Palestinians, hopefully having the Arabs take over the West Bank and Gaza. But I think
hopefully having the Arabs, so like he means like
what is he talking about there?
He means like the client Gulf states,
right?
Like, that's what he means. So what he's saying is basically Israel has the green light to continue destroying Gaza, expel as many people as it wants to, and then we'll start over again. By the way, it doesn't matter, but like a small historical, it wasn't the U.S. that took over Berlin; it was the Soviet Red Army. Not to quote. who cares? But it's just like it is some kind of World War II like revisionism there. Anyway, but but that's this is the mentality. He's like, why this clip is significant. This isn't just the rantings of a madman. This is the current policy. This is what Trump has signed on to. This Trump said this week, it's too bad we wanted to reach a ceasefire, but Hamas doesn't want it, so we're gonna have to Israel's gonna have to just finish the job. That's what he said. Finish the job.
Finish the job. Yeah. It's so weird, Aaron, that he didn't get a thank you from the people of Gaza for that.
Yeah.
For that statement. And by the way, when Lindsey says they're going to do to Gaza what we did in Berlin and Tokyo, they already have. So Japan's minister was quoted in 2024, quote, "It is heartbreaking that many times more bombs were dropped on Gaza than on Tokyo in massive U.S. air raids during World War II." And some place the damage at 92% of housing structures and around 70% of all buildings. And we do know that they've damaged around 70% of Gaza's farmland, too. but over 95% of their farmland is now unusable.
Okay, let's move on to a different perspective. Someone who's actually in Gaza and can speak to the impact of the policies that Lindsey Graham supports. That's Save the Children Gaza Humanitarian Director Rachel Cummings. She spoke to ABC News.
Now by Rachel Cummings,
not to be confused with the evil organization, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation.
Gaza Humanitarian Director for Save the Children, who is right now coming to us on the ground in Gaza. So thank you, Rachel. Thank you for the work you are doing. Thank you for taking time to speak with us. Just give me a sense. How is it looking right now on the ground?
The situation in Gaza is catastrophic for children and increasingly now for adults. There is no food available in the market. Children are literally starving, and we run health clinics in Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis. We run nutrition centers in Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis, and we are seeing an exponential rise in the number of children attending our clinic in the first 2 weeks.
Just look at that. I mean, look at that image. How are people okay with this being done?
In the first 2 weeks of July, we've seen exactly the same number of children we saw in the whole of June, and we're expecting that trajectory, sadly, to increase. So the number of children who are malnourished, very concerningly, pregnant women who are breastfeeding are also malnourished. But this morning, I went to our clinic in Deir al-Balah, about 10 minutes from where I am right now, and it was absolutely packed. And it was a scene I had never witnessed before, and I've been working in this sector for over 20 years in the Horn of Africa, in various places around the world, and every child in the health center today was malnourished, but also every adult was extremely thin, gaunt looking, exhausted. The situation is absolutely terrible here.
So what can you say? I mean, Trump, meanwhile, is talking about wanting to be thanked for what he's doing in Gaza. Evil just doesn't begin to describe it. I think Israel should change its name to evil. It should just be called evil,
or Israel. Israel.
I mean, so many different options. But it truly, to me, is the embodiment of evil. Alex DeWall, a famine expert, he said recently that we have not seen this sustained, concerted effort to starve a civilian population since the Nazis. And it's happening before our eyes, fully with our support. I mean, if the U.S. simply pulled the plug, Israel could not get away with it. We've seen that so many times. Whenever the U.S. put pressure on Israel, Israel has complied. And Trump is saying right now he's fine with letting the people of Gaza starve.
So wrong, so evil, yeah. Never again. What happened to never again? By the way, guys, we have over 2,000 people watching, and I'm not above shaming people. We have 885 likes. How is that possible? We're delivering this news. It's very important. We sit through it. It's like double torture. It's torture to see what's happening, although we have to do that, of course. And then it's torture to see the news covering it in such an irresponsible way. So let's get those numbers up. By the end of the next clip, we better have 1,000 likes, which will be not even half the number of people watching. I know you're not all hate watching. So, okay, now we're at 1,000. I want 1,200 by the end of the next clip. All right. I don't like this. Hurts me more than you to do these reminders. Okay. What do we got next?
Senator Chris Van Hollen, Democrat of Maryland, one of the few people in Washington willing to sometimes be critical of Israel, although his record is mixed. Like, he's criticized Israel, but he'll still vote to send them weapons sometimes. Although I don't think he's done that recently, to his credit. But anyway, we'll take what we can get. It's a very, very low bar. Here he is speaking to Face the Nation.
The administration announced it would give $30 million to this Israeli-backed organization called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the GHF. I know you're familiar with it. It delivers aid through armed military contractors who stand behind the Israeli military in 4 designated zones that Gazans then have to get themselves to in order to receive the aid. The State Department says they're sending this money. Have they?
To my knowledge, they have, although we've asked for the details. We haven't gotten them. In fact, just today, I'm sending a letter to Secretary Rubio, signed with 20 of my colleagues, calling for more information, but also calling for defunding this. American taxpayers should not be spending one penny to fund this private organization backed by mercenaries and by the IDF that has become a death trap. Over 1,000 people have died from being shot and killed as starving people crowd to try to get food at just these 4 sites.
That's right. I think we lost the clip for a second. Okay, yeah, let's keep listening.
The administration announced it would give $30 million.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, he's exactly right. As we talked about earlier, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is an Israeli front group funded by the U.S., and it's a scam. And it's been used not only to destroy the UN aid system that was working in giving aid to people of Gaza, it's also been used to lull people into death traps. More than 1,000 Palestinians have been killed. And what are they doing now? Israel announced that they'll allow some UN trucks to come in on Sunday. This is after like days and days of global outcry. But even that hasn't really happened. And they're also doing these airdrops.
Right.
These so-called airdrops of aid, which just like the first time they did this under Biden, continue to hurt people. When this happened under Biden, people were killed with aid dropping on them, and people have been injured again, at least injured and possibly killed with these aid drops, which again are just it's a stunt to distract from the fact that Israel has been blocking hundreds of aid trucks lined up at the border carrying aid that Israel won't allow in.
Yeah, and also according to local reports, they say that only 75 trucks actually went in, and that's from the great Mohammed Shahada.
And what's happening today in Israel? Well, 2 more organizations have joined the growing consensus around the world that Israel is committing genocide, and that is 2 Israeli groups: B'Tselem, the Israeli human rights group, and Physicians for Human Rights. They put out reports today saying that Israel is committing genocide. Not that we need Israeli sources to confirm what's obvious to everybody else, but the fact that it's, even Israeli groups are saying this, it just underscores that this is one of the worst crimes we've ever seen. This is genocide, and it's only the U.S. that is able to make it continue. If Trump changed his position, it would stop.
Yep. So tell that to all your friends who need to hear things from Israelis. I mean, it's messed up that they do, but it's useful to reach people who are Jewish supremacists who can't believe words unless they come out of Jewish Israelis' mouths.
All right. So France is one of many governments that are complicit in this. They arm Israel, they support Israel, they defend Israel. And so this week, instead of a face-saving gesture, French President Emmanuel Macron came out and said that France will recognize the state of Palestine. And, it's my opinion that he's doing this just to save face, to make it look as if he's doing something. But still, the fact that he's doing it, I personally think it's significant because, this is, why don't Palestinians have a land of their own? Like, if we recognize they have the right to self-determination, why don't they have their own state when even their leadership has accepted one for a very, very long time in a very small sliver of land? Just, the PLO, which is based in the West Bank, and it's now the Palestinian Authority, the so-called government in the West Bank, and even members of Hamas have said, we'll accept a Palestinian state in just 22% of our historic homeland, the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem. They're compromising. Israel won't even accept a Palestinian compromise because it wants to steal Palestinian land and expel Palestinians into other countries because Israel's a fanatical Jewish supremacist state. So France offering symbolic recognition of Palestine, I do think it actually is somewhat significant. And you can see what importance it has because immediately Israel and the U.S. freaked out and accused France of anti-Semitism. Trump said what France says doesn't matter. But I do think the fact that, some people, at least in the world, are saying, hey, Palestinians have been promised a state. Why can't they have one of their own? I do think that's important. And so this is the French foreign minister, Jean-Noël Barrot, who spoke about this to CBS.
You are headed to New York, to the United Nations, to help lead a summit to talk about a two-state solution. Your president announced France will formally recognize the state of Palestine at the UN in September. More than 100 countries recognize Palestine, but France is the first Western UN Security Council member to do so. And the United States opposes what you are saying. Secretary of State Rubio called it reckless. He says it serves Hamas propaganda, sets back peace, and considers it a slap in the face to the victims of October 7th. In your
God, that is just so cynical. First of all, using dead people to justify your support for apartheid and denying Palestinians the right to self-determination. And if you really care about October 7th, the reason October 7th happened is because Israel was alone in denying Palestinians their right to freedom and self-determination.
Right.
After Hamas accepted a state, which for them is a very big compromise. Imagine saying, yeah, okay, fine. You stole my homeland. I'll take just 22% of it. I'll accept that. Okay. I'll give you 78% of my homeland. I'll take 22%. And Israel says, no, we're going to keep you in a concentration camp and still keep stealing land in the occupied West Bank, terrorizing Palestinians there with fanatic Jewish supremacist settlers. And also, even when you march peacefully, as the people of Gaza did in 2018 with the Great March of Return, Israel said, yeah, we're going to gun you down with U.S. weapons. And the U.S. media yawned. It was, yeah, great. Israel has to defend itself against unarmed civilians who are marching for their basic rights. So that's why
they have no choice but to shoot people in the knees. They have no choice but to target children, people with disabilities, media, and medics.
So if you want to invoke October 7th, that's why October 7th happened.
Right.
That's what happens when you deny people their freedom after stealing their land for decades after decades.
Right. That's Gideon Levy wrote a piece in Haaretz saying you cannot, put millions of people in a concentration camp and not pay a price.
Government's view, why is he wrong?
So the reason why President Macron made this decision is that it was absolutely necessary to restart a political process, the two-state solution process, that is today more threatened than it has ever been. And
look, that's not why Macron did it. I think Macron did it to save face because he is a supplicant when it comes to Israel. He bends the knee like everybody else in Europe. But look, it doesn't mean that move toward recognizing a Palestinian state is meaningless. I actually think it carries some significance because it reminds the world what the fundamental problem is, which is that Palestinians have been denied by Israel and the U.S. the right to self-determination. And every president is complicit in this. Like what Trump does is says we're not going to give Palestinians a state, forget it. Other presidents would say we are going to give Palestinians a state while giving Israel all the support it needed to prevent a Palestinian state. So everybody, like Barack Obama, who is personally not like a fanatic Zionist,
right.
He like would sometimes say some nice things about Palestinian rights, but meanwhile doing nothing to stop Israel from building the massive settlements that make peace impossible. And under Biden, when he came in office, settlement expansion under Israel massively grew even more. So, and Bill Clinton, of course, has famously blamed Palestinians for walking away from a so-called generous peace deal that was never actually made. It was a complete lie. And Bill Clinton's lied for years now on Israel's behalf. So everybody's complicit. But Trump has taken it to a new level of just saying, yeah, forget it. Palestinians basically have to leave. That's essentially the Trump policy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that, as you said, the timing is a little bit suspicious.
Okay. Well,
you don't have to do anything about the starvation because you're talking about two states.
Do you want to hear more from the French foreign minister?
Mais bien sûr. You mean this clip or the other clip?
Well, which one do you want to hear?
I thought the Iran clip was pretty good.
Okay. So let's hear from the French foreign minister on, speaking of diplomatic outcomes, how about a new Iran nuclear deal?
Yeah. Yeah, let's listen.
Just 5 weeks ago, when the United States and Israel bombed Iran. Since that time, France has talked to the Iranian government, along with other European powers, about what remains of Iran's nuclear program. How concerned are you that after these bombings, Iran may now covertly attempt to make a weapon and the world won't know?
This is still a risk that we are facing. And alongside Germany and the UK, we have been very clear. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And we've been, over the past few months, reaching out to the Iranian authority in close coordination with US authorities in order to express what our expectations are. 10 years ago, we reached a deal on the nuclear program that allowed for a significant rollback of Iranian nuclear capacity. Of course, things have changed till then, and since then, Iran has violated all commitments it had taken at the time of signing this agreement.
Wait, who has violated the agreement? Iran has violated it?
Yes. Iran's violated the deal by complying with it, having the U.S. break it, having the U.S. use new diplomacy on renewing it to provide cover for Israel and the U.S. bombing Iran. So it's all Iran's fault.
Right. Yep. Let's keep watching.
We now want a more comprehensive agreement that would encompass both the nuclear dimension of Iranian destabilization activities, but also it's the ballistic component as well as the regional destabilization activities that Iran has been conducting. Unless we...
And just to translate that from propaganda speak, Iranian destabilization means resisting Israel, like supporting groups that resist Israel. So if you support groups that are resisting a mass murdering hegemon, you are the destabilizer in the region. And so it's all your fault, Iran. You have to rein in your destabilization and stop supporting states and groups that resist a mass murdering hegemon in Tel Aviv. That's what he's saying. You're muted.
Yeah, the double standards are just striking. I mean, it's interesting he doesn't mention that Trump tore up the agreement. You'd think that would be kind of relevant.
Yeah, you think so? Maybe. But he can't offend the Godfather, so he has to blame. He has to blame the Godfather's target, which is Iran. Okay, is that enough of the French foreign minister?
Yeah, oui, je crois que oui.
Okay, all right. Let's move on. Look, for those of us who followed that whole story about Trump being accused of being a Russian agent and Russia being accused of a massive interference operation that brainwashed millions of Americans into not voting for Hillary Clinton. Because how else could Hillary Clinton have lost if not for those dastardly Russians? It's all the Russians' fault, basically. And because Hillary
it has nothing to do with her record-breaking unfavorability rating.
No, nothing. So because Hillary Clinton and her allies just couldn't accept losing to a reality TV show host and maybe doing a little self-reflection, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have supported all these wars that destroy foreign countries and send young people off to die. And maybe we shouldn't have shipped manufacturing jobs to other countries. They decided to blame Russia. And we all paid the price through the multi-year scandal called Russiagate, in which Trump was framed as a Russian agent. And Russia was accused of a sprawling interference operation that, sowed chaos in American democracy through the power of social media bots and leaked emails. Anyway, now the Trump administration, for its own reasons, including, I think, wanting to distract from the Jeffrey Epstein thing, but also just because, look, they were framed as Russian assets and they want revenge. And now they're taking it by releasing documents that newly underscores that Russiagate was a fraud. And they're also accusing their opponents, just as people like Hillary Clinton were doing, they're accusing their opponents of being treasonous. I mean, Trump was being accused of treason in his first term. So now they are returning the favor. And so here's the director of the CIA talking about some potential prosecutions over Russiagate.
What you're saying is there is still an opportunity for indictments, potential prosecutions, accountability from those people who may have lied under oath, like John Brennan, James Comey, and perhaps Hillary Clinton.
Well, that's why I've made the referrals that I have. DNI Gabbard has made referrals, and why we're going to continue to share the intelligence that would support the ability of our Department of Justice to make bring fair and just claims against those who have perpetrated this hoax against the American people and this stain on our country.
Director, one other question on this. Tulsi, as well as President Trump, used the word treason. Is there a statute of limitations on treason?
Well, Maria, what I would say is this, is there is no doubt in my mind that the people that we just talked about conspired. They conspired against President Trump. They conspired against the American people. And so I'll leave it to Pam Bondi and our Department of Justice, Kash Patel, and our FBI to investigate the conspiracy to do what and what charges that they're capable of bringing. But again, I don't think statute of limitations are going to impact, because in the conspiracy, Maria, the statute of limitation doesn't start to run until the last act in furtherance of that conspiracy. And Maria, part of why this is so important is the people behind this are still furthering the conspiracy. They're refusing to admit or acknowledge what they did in 2016 and what they did in 2020 was wrong. And so I think that's why this is so important and why I'm excited about what the American people will see very shortly and what's to continue to come.
So that's the director of the CIA saying that Hillary Clinton might be prosecuted for charges including treason. And look, this has gone on now for so long. We're in like the, I don't know, 8th, 9th year of Russiagate. People obviously have Russiagate fatigue, but it's just.
But you know who doesn't? You know who doesn't have Russiagate fatigue?
Who?
And two opposable thumbs. This guy.
Yeah, right here. Oh yeah. Oh, I do not. Sure, of course. Please listen. I have to admit. Listen, we're getting releases from the Trump administration, and I understand they have their own motives. But what they've released is really important. It underscores what those of us who criticize Russiagate were saying along, which is that this was a fraud. The evidence wasn't there. Evidence was never there for collusion, and it also wasn't there for so-called Russian interference. We've learned from these new disclosures that the intelligence community buried countervailing information, including that the FBI and the NSA had low confidence in the core allegation at the heart of Russiagate, which is that Russia hacked and released emails from the Democratic Party. So that is important, but it's just funny. Like, we're in this endless 2016 time loop. Like, this has been going on for so long. And back then it was all about, like, constantly there was like special counsel Mueller, then there was special counsel Durham. It never ends over the dumbest thing ever, a dumb conspiracy theory that Trump was includes with Russia, and Russia was brainwashing Americans through social media memes. And we can't get out of it now because the Trump team, they're using the opportunity to, like, cover up for their own failures. Just as Hillary Clinton used Russiagate to cover up for hers by keeping this going. And look, but the difference is that the Trump team has an argument. This was a fraud. They were framed. They were being accused of treason back then. And so for Russiagators, the chickens are coming home to roost.
Yep.
Okay, let's hear someone defend, though, the Russia investigation. That is Congressmember Jason Crow. He is a Democrat of Colorado, and he pushes back on these treason allegations.
Dossier was included in that, but I want to play something that then CIA Director John Brennan said to Trey Gowdy when he was asked about the inclusion of the Steele dossier. This is May of 2017.
Did the CIA rely on it?
No.
Why not?
Because we didn't. It wasn't part of the corpus of intelligence information that we had. It was not in any way used as a basis for the intelligence community assessment that was done. It was not.
That appears not to be true. Again, from this report from 2020, it says contradicting public claims by the director of the CIA that the dossier, quote, was not in any way incorporated into the assessment. The dossier was referenced in the main body text, and it was further detailed in a 2-page assessment in the annex to that. So
for some people, this might be hard to follow because the story's been going on forever. There's a lot of details. But basically, what they're saying here is the director of the CIA lied to Congress. And this is why, I mean, this story still to me has significance. It's just like these people lied. John Brennan went before Congress and said the Steele dossier, which is a collection of conspiracy theories funded by Hillary Clinton to smear Trump as a Russian agent, that it had no role at all in this intelligence assessment that he released at the very end of Obama's term, right before Trump took office. And it's not true. We know now that Brennan referenced the Steele dossier in that intelligence assessment, and he pushed to have it included. In fact, there's more on that here in this Fox clip.
CIA director stand there and say we didn't use the Steele dossier when it was at the heart of this assessment.
Shannon, it was not at the heart of the assessment. The assessment about Russian meddling it was a different process and a different review, which is why, on a bipartisan basis, the Senate did that review, that complete review.
Not true. He's just flat out saying a falsehood, and this is the problem here. They're facing a problem now, which is that when you perpetuate fraud, even though they had the entire media establishment and even some Republicans going along with it, because some Republicans were into this because blaming Russia for like a massive interference operation aimed at destroying our democracy that was akin to 9/11 and Pearl Harbor, that helped them foment tensions with Russia and, for example, escalate in places like Ukraine, which Republicans love to do because they're warmongers. So this was a bipartisan affair, because even if Republicans rejected the collusion angle, they love the Russian interference part. And that's what they're still trying to cling to, even though so much fraud went into it that is now being exposed.
Under the first Trump administration, again, led in part by Marco Rubio, the now Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor, and they all agreed. They all agreed in what did and didn't happen here. So don't confuse after action reviews that find areas for improvement, that find areas where the tradecraft fell short in several areas. There has never been in the history of the intelligence community or the history of any operation. I was a soldier, I was an Army Ranger. You never do an operation that's perfect, right? You always do after action reviews.
It wasn't perfect. There was just massive fraud and the reliance on conspiracy theories funded by Trump's opponent, but it was just it was flawed. And there are ways to improve, say not framing someone as a Russian agent, but otherwise there's nothing to see here. So look, Democrats made this bed. They got to sleep in it.
Yeah. It's true. And Aaron's tucking them in.
And I'm here for it because what we're getting released, is important. And, like one of the things that we learned from this new House intelligence report that just got declassified, it was written years ago, but only got released now, is that actually, this idea that Putin favored Trump, what actually the intelligence that the U.S. picked up was that Putin didn't care who won in 2016 because Putin was telling everybody in his circle that it doesn't matter who wins because they're going to want war with us anyway. Right. And we can't make peace with it's impossible to make peace in Washington because they're just no matter who's in power, they just want war. So that actually was Putin's view, according to newly released U.S. intelligence. And Putin's right if that's actually what he was saying, because we've seen over these intervening years that the consensus is war. That's why we have a proxy war going on now in Ukraine. And by the way, we learned also recently that Ukraine was heavily involved in the Russiagate allegations early on. John Brennan used Ukrainian intelligence to help lodge some of the allegations that he put into that intelligence assessment. And that speaks to the fact that John Brennan, being at the head of the CIA, was able to use Ukraine as a proxy because of the 2014 coup in Ukraine that the U.S. supported. So this has significance beyond just, partisan fighting. This is geopolitical as well. And, more to come.
Yeah. And you've argued how the Russiagate hoax prepped a lot of people for supporting the war with Russia, the proxy war. And I also think it's an important example of, and you've made the point that it kind of undermined the opposition to Trump because you saw some great energy going into protests against the Muslim ban. And then that was redirected into things about Jeff Sessions getting fired, Robert Mueller, attacks on Robert Mueller being pushed back against. And also, you can go after someone without lying about them.
Plenty of things to go after Trump over. Take your pick. It's you could it's like the thing where you take a globe and you spin it with your eyes closed and you pick up, spin the wheel. There's anything to go after Trump.
Throwing a dart.
Not over a conspiracy theory invented by the Hillary Clinton campaign to frame him as a Russian agent.
Right.
I think we can agree now.
Which also helped galvanize support around him because his supporters were it was a campaign that was never going to have any effect on his supporters because his supporters both didn't care and also saw him as the victim of this. Whereas if they'd gone after him for something that that affected his supporters, like if they showed how he was undermining, his claims of America first, or how he was undermining his claims to protect workers.
What could have been had Bernie Sanders taken over the party in 2016 rather than the Clintons and the Obamas and the Bidens maintain their hold in part by blaming Russia for everything. What could have been? Okay, let's move on to Ro Khanna. He has taken the Jeffrey Epstein thing and really running with it. He is co-sponsoring, along with Thomas Massie, a bill to release whatever material the government has on Jeffrey Epstein. And Ro Khanna thinks this is a winning issue.
Well, Congressman Khanna, I have to ask you, politically speaking, the implication for Democrats, there has been a lot of focus by yourself, by other Democrats on this issue of Jeffrey Epstein. Prior to this, you all were talking about the so-called big, beautiful bill, the fact that the CBO had estimated, for example, some 10 million people could be kicked off of their health care. Are you concerned that by focusing on Epstein, you could overshadow Democrats' message on pocketbook issues and hurt your chances in the midterms?
No, I'm not. Look, my core conviction is a new economic patriotism to reindustrialize America, a 21st century Marshall Plan for America, Medicare for all, opposing the Medicaid cuts. But you can't do anything constructive with government if you don't have trust in government. This is about trust in government. When John F. Kennedy was president, trust in government was 60%. Today, it's in the teens. Congressman Johnson and I, Speaker Johnson and I came to Congress together. He was on the reform side, too. He wanted to make government work. This is a perfect opportunity for him to say, look, the past is the past. Okay, I didn't love that he shut down government. Maybe on your show today, he'll commit that when we come back, let's have a vote. Remind him of what we were like, the conversations we had in our freshman class. This is about being a reform agent of transparency.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated.
Look at Ro being all nostalgic for his conversations with Mike Johnson. Like, two scrappy young Congress members going to office together, joined at the hip over transparency, even though they come from different sides of the aisle. So he's trying to appeal to Mike Johnson. Hey, buddy, remember our talks about transparency? Let's do that with Epstein, because Mike Johnson shut down the House for the rest of the summer rather than have a vote on releasing the Epstein files, which is pretty funny.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I'm actually impressed that she asked that question. It seems like a question or a point that we would make here on this show, which suggests that she's watching our show. You're welcome. If you're watching, please like the stream. But I think that, there's the potential, I think, of using this as a kind of gateway drug, if you will, like expose Trump's lies, his hypocrisy, and then go after the big, beautiful bill with that. Maybe.
Well, hey, Democrats' approval ratings right now are in the gutter. So I think any new, fresh approach is welcome. Right. And, look, Trump he has betrayed his base. And so Democrats see an opportunity here. Personally, again, I'm not of the opinion that there's something massively explosive being covered up inside the Epstein files. Like, I think at best there's something embarrassing for Trump because he's an admitted sexual predator hanging out with another sexual predator. So could be something there embarrassing for him. But in terms of game-changing stuff, I mean, I just, that's my hunch. But anyway, Ro Khanna seizing the moment, and this certainly is not. Trump is certainly not beating all this just by trying to deny it and trying to ask people to stop talking about it. It's not working.
Yeah, but I think he has to redirect it, Ro. I mean, especially because something else that they could be talking about, Ro and Massie, is Gaza.
Yeah,
I'm hoping they shift to that. Yeah.
And by speaking of Gaza, we didn't actually mention that over the weekend another flotilla ship was seized by Israel. All these brave people who risked their lives to go on a ship, sail towards Gaza, trying to break the blockade. And for the second time in recent months, Israel, of course, intercepted them, kidnapped them, and has now deported them. This ship was called the Handala, and there were some Americans on that ship, including Huwaida Araf,
who we had on our show.
Yeah, and also Christian Smalls, the head of the Amazon labor union, and really brave people acting as the conscience of humanity. And Israel, of course, kidnapped them and prevented them from arriving. But it's that's one example of many of people of conscience, of courage, standing up and doing something, and it's very admirable.
Yeah, really, really great.
All right, let's since we talked about the big beautiful bill, let's hear one more clip. House Speaker Mike Johnson. Let's go back to him because the big promise from the Republicans, and certainly Democrats want to keep talking about this too, is that, they promised not to cut Medicaid. That's exactly what they did with the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. So this is House Speaker Mike Johnson being asked about that.
Majority support in the public, and that's after the onslaught of the mainstream media and Democrats lying about the bill. So we're excited to go out into our districts in August and tell the truth.
But Mr. Speaker, Josh Hawley says he is worried about cuts to payments and Medicaid reimbursements. Why would he be introducing a bill to roll back cuts in Medicaid if there were no cuts in Medicaid? He says the people in his state are going to suffer.
Another question for I have, though, not for Johnson, but for Hawley, is why did you vote for this bill, given you knew this was going to happen?
It's unbelievable. He was the one Republican being like, we can't do this. It's going to cut Medicaid. Anyway, I'm going to go now vote for the bill to cut Medicaid. What happened behind the scenes to get Josh Hawley to do that? It's so humiliating. And now he's introducing a measure to undo what he voted for. Right. Why'd you vote for it, man?
Exactly. It's just embarrassing.
I haven't talked to my friend Josh Hawley about his legislation. I'm not sure what that's directed to, but I will tell you that the One Big Beautiful Bill safeguards the program. It strengthens it. It makes sure that Medicaid will be there for those who actually need it and who the law is intended to provide for. It is not for illegal aliens. We've kicked them off. It's not for people who are
illegal aliens, quote unquote, illegal aliens never got it, first of all.
Gaming the system. We've kicked them off, and it's not for people who should be working. They have to be able to prove that they're in one of these programs in order to get those benefits. And I think taxpayers will be served very well by that. But everything else in the bill is wildly popular as well.
Let me ask.
Yeah, such a lie, such a lie. And actually, states speaking of the undocumented, and I'm putting this in air quotes in case you're just listening, the illegal immigrants. Illegal aliens, sorry. So Medicaid doesn't give money to undocumented immigrants. States can decide to cover undocumented immigrants with state funds, but they're not allowed to enroll in federal Medicaid. And when he talks about people who are gaming the system, who should be working, we've said this before, but it's just a disgusting lie. And according to a study released by the Kaiser Family Foundation, a majority of adults 19 through 64 on Medicaid are employed. A whopping 64% were working full-time or part-time.
Well, just to return to a point I made earlier, I've never seen a human being who looks more like a ventriloquist dummy. I mean, maybe I'm seeing too much here, but it's really striking, and it's so fitting for Mike Johnson, who was just a dummy for not just for Israel, but also for the corporate elite. His so-called Big Beautiful Bill not only cuts, services like Medicaid and food assistance for low-income people, it also gives wealthy people another tax cut.
Right.
So Mike Johnson, that's who he serves.
And I like this point from TID Forever. Who cares if it did? We're the richest country in the world. We can afford to stop using those funds to murder innocents. That's true. No one ever suggests cutting. No one ever asks how we're going to pay for that. How we're going to pay for supporting genocide. Yeah.
And in fact, this bill increased the funding for the Pentagon, as if they're not getting enough money already. Which, like when they can't even pass an audit and spend so much more money on the military-industrial complex than like dozens of states after us combined. That's the Big Beautiful Bill for Mike Johnson. Yeah. And Democrats, if they can't make this an issue,
I know,
in the election, then man. So the problem is, though, the Republicans are so sneaky that a lot of their cuts to like Medicaid, they designed them so that they take effect after the midterms.
Right.
So it's like, we're so proud of our bill, but let's actually just delay the provisions that like hurt working people until after they have to vote for us for re-election.
Right. It's so gross. And sorry, not to be super nerdy, but just one more thing. When Johnson makes it sound like people are like mischievously like conning the system, again, just got to remind people of the 36% of people who are unemployed adults 19 through 64 receiving Medicaid. 19% aren't working because of school or caretaking responsibilities, 10% because of disability, and 8% because they are retired, can't find work or some other or can't find work or some other reason. They were not gaming the system.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's
Thanks
Monday
so much
morning.
For tuning in. Yeah. And we'll see you next week.
Anything you want to preview for?
Oh, yeah. So we're going to have some great upcoming shows. I'm still working out who's coming on when, but between this week and next week, we're going to have on Daniel Davis, who we've had on before, who was going to be named by Trump, but had his nomination scrapped because he sees Palestinians as human beings.
He was going to be a deputy to Tulsi Gabbard at
Yeah.
the Office of National Intelligence, and but
Exactly.
the Israel lobby made sure that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, so he's coming on this week or next week. We're going to have someone from the flotilla this week or next week. We're going to have doctors who are in Gaza this week or next week. And a Palestinian American organizer for immigrant rights whose organization captured that video that we showed last week inside an ICE location where they smuggled out someone smuggled out video footage shot on their phone to show that ICE authorities were lying.
All right.
And that's at youtube.com/The Katie Halper Show.
All right. Well, that's our show. Thanks so much for watching Monday Morning. It truly is a great joy to start the week with all of you. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your comments. Support the show at usefulidiots.podcast.com. We'll see you next time.
Great.